Peace, y'all. So we're going to be looking into this divine, feminine, divine, masculine balancing. There's been a lot of like clearing. It had to be done from what I've seen, on kind of an inner plane level. It had to be done in different ways because so many folks were like guarded and in clearing generational patterns that are highly dysfunctional or toxic. There's a lot of self-protection that goes along with that. And when we're self-protecting, we're not necessarily in a whole self type of place, like where our energy's fully flowing and we can show up for the people in our lives, in the ways that would be healthiest for both them and ourselves. Some of us, hashtag empath life, have shown up way more for others, and then we're not really, paying attention to what's falling apart in our own lives. So for those who are dealing with that, I'm in that boat too, and I'm learning like how it's just not good. You think that you're being like so serviceable and so helpful, and when your own stability is falling apart as a result because you just have this emotional outpouring based on some vague idea that if you just provide enough help, things in the world are going to change, right? At least that's with my soul searching what I believe I was operating out of. And I'm realizing now, because it's been coming through spirit, like leading by example, is just as powerful, if not more powerful. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. And really, in thinking about that, it's just way more empowering. I don't know what spirit is in the house right now, because I saw that just now. I saw that. Doesn't feel injurious in any way. But yeah, I straight up, that was so clear. Anyways. In the process of cleansing our foundations, we've had the opportunity to experience a lot. We experience, of course, the negatives that have come with it that aren't productive, that aren't positive takeaways outside of what lesson they can present if you're approaching it as a lesson and you're, really utilizing your wisdom. Because like for those who like the astrologics, there was a whole dance between Saturn and Scorpio because of the foundational changes that have needed to take place. So we've had to look at generational lines and what has gone before. And I mean, like, you could just look at buzzwords like narcissism. That's a buzzword now. It's like in everybody's mouth. And when you really look at it, I mean, that's part of the whole Saturn Scorpio thing. Definitely the way I see it anyways, definitely is. In order for us to have a societal structure where society is not operating as like this, in this model of narcissism, that, even if you want to look at celebrity and common folk that has, a position for those who are deemed, worthy by whatever people who, remain invisible or remain semi-invisible, pulling whatever strings. And then you have the other group where it's like, well, prove yourselves, while dirt is being kicked on you, while pressures are being applied to you. And we can, go with the wisdom of, what is that saying? Like that's how diamonds are made, right? Like coal under pressure or whatever, and all that's peace. But the pressure was too much. It was reaching very clearly a critical point. And when people have been trained, hypnotized by media, that kind of thing, to kind of be self-serving, but not necessarily in a healthy way, like in a way where it's like turning an unhearing ear to the very real cries of people who are suffering, because, well, it's not your problem, right? And I think that's why hashtag empath life, like empaths and highly sensitive peoples, however you identify, yourself, we've been that. We've been the ones who weren't being heard or were being projected upon, who just felt like we were, pretty much drowning in toxicity and had to like dream our own air bubble into existence to make our way through life. But it only held up but so much, because here came somebody, or we were cross a path with somebody who really seems to need help or really needed help. And then it's like, okay, well, you can get in the bubble with me, I'll make a new compartment for you, and, well, you can get in the bubble with me, and pretty soon there's no levity, and you're not really getting out of you might have gotten past some of the really toxic waters, but you haven't really gotten out of the toxic patterns, enough to be carrying other people. And I think that's what's happening in realizations for empaths now. Like, yeah, we could go on like this until there's nothing left of us. We have importance too. We have inner children too within that. It's great to be strong and serviceable, and to be knowledgeable too, you know what I'm saying? Because there are definitely like a lot of righteous teachers who kind of put themselves in the line, and they've been poor righteous teachers. Props to the old school scholars that were coming through like true like authenticity and heart alignment, you know what I'm saying, who have helped us to self-navigate on the know thyself journey, right? But it's like there comes a point where you kind of have to let people live the lives that they're living, and perhaps the panic, one of the things that he said in his lectures before, it was like you, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, you wait for, in so many words, you wait for people to come to you, and then you can give them what you can give them, you know what I'm saying? But it's their work, you know what I mean? Which is why it's definitely not to, I know there's a lot of people who's been out here it seems like there's been a lot of people out here collecting clout tokens, but it's not about being anyone's cult leader. It's not about being worshipped. It really isn't. You do not want that. I would think you do not want that. It's additional responsibility. It really, really is. And at the end of the day, we're all learning and growing. And if the path shifts and takes on new dimensions that you're not familiar with, another teacher will rise up who can see that more clearly. And to me, from where I'm sitting, that's how it works. That period. You have ancestors who have specialty areas. Gods, goddesses, deities, angelics have specialty areas. You hold the lane you hold. And to whatever degree of divine measure information is coming through you, or that you have access to it. You know what I'm saying? So I think like for empaths who have gotten too overly invested in the lives of their family members, the lives of, could be someone that you're dating or someone you're married to, on a level where they can't have personal boundaries or don't feel like they can explore their own identity, that's when you can kind of run into issues, right? So I think like, being subjected to narcissistic type people can have an effect, you know what I'm saying, on empaths. Being abused and dealing with torment, it can have an effect psychologically where take the time to heal. Because if you were running yourself in the ground in a relationship with a narcissist, or if you were raised by someone who's, dealing with narcissistic tendencies, whatever it is, whatever range, whatever degree of who you might have been dating that was dealing with some degree of narcissism, or somebody raised you some degree of narcissism, or a boss that had some degree of narcissism and really chipped away at you, if you're going to go and finish their work and seek out situations where you can become smaller and smaller and smaller, like, look, I feel like it can be a wake-up call, because I feel like you will wake up. But it's unnecessary if you realize that it probably all started with the deep, deep, deep need from a part of you that was injured or deprived, and probably both, seeking to have their existence acknowledged in a real way, seeking approval in some cases. In other cases, it's like, could you just see me for who I am? If you were dealing with someone with narcissistic tendencies who would project these traits onto you and talk about you and say all these different things about you in your childhood that were not true. And then being a child, it's like you're trying to self-identify, and figure out who you are, and now you have to deal with these projections of the things that the parent themselves doesn't want to deal with about them, that they're projecting onto you. So all that to say, I hope that this reading will be helpful, because I feel like these are the types of issues that are coming up now, but in a really, after all of the intensity of these shifts and these release periods, I feel like this water energy this season, it's a water season, of course. We've had water seasons before that weren't quite this therapeutic. There's so much therapeutic opportunity in this particular water season. There's such a presence of Mother Goddesses. My goodness, I am so thankful. Because I know I myself, and I've had the hardest time with all this Saturnian energy in my chart. I've had the hardest time letting up on myself and relaxing and not going to workaholism to feel stable. I'm finally relaxing in my emotions, and it feels amazing to do so without fear that something will come my way, to try to diminish the experience or make me selfish for doing it, or whatever the case may be. So whatever your story is, self-acceptance and just taking some time to release the toxic projections. I'm going to read off a few affirmations before we start the actual reading, but it can be so helpful to just let them dissolve away from you. That's the beauty of water energy. Let it dissolve away. You don't have to fight it unless you want to have a cycle of fighting and action reaction within all of that, or reaction whatever. You can just dissolve it, and that is the beauty of water. Because at the end of the day, it's that pent up emotional buildup, I feel, that has caused people to go into toxic actions and abusive actions towards others, because they're no longer connected enough with themselves where they're properly feeling. You know what I'm saying? So they're not even looking through the lens of feel at that point, and that's what makes it imbalanced. And as we're looking to balance out society, however long that's going to take, but as we're looking at society balancing itself out, it is important that there be that respect for just the rhythm and flow that comes with water. That really was, I would say, if you want to look at your original sense of rooting, you know what I'm saying? You already had your roots to your father. You swam out of your father. You were a swimmer and you won the race. Congrats. But then you went into different waters and had to deal with the psychology of whatever the experience was that you had while you were in utero. However you identify, some people feel like the spirit doesn't enter the body until a certain time. I mean, that's, however you resonate is the best way to do it. But that water experience, when you were able to deal with calm, to whatever degree that you could, because we know, hopefully the mothers at least had enough moments, at least our mothers had enough moments where there was enough peace and stillness where there was some of that, that experience, when we're overloaded, being able to go back to water, getting in a bath, doing a sea salt bath, or doing, you know what I'm saying, any kind of spa moment type of bath. You know what I'm saying? Where you could be surrounded by water can help to bring you back to that vulnerable aspect of yourself so you can really relax and be in that state of realizing that what you require is provided to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have benefactors, you have help, you have divine guidance. And this is something that water can help you with. If you've gone too far into self-reliance and some of it too far, that's to that Saturnian paradigm, it can take time to even want to trust water again, especially if there were very alienating experiences with the mother, you know, or mothers in your line where it could be like a generational type of thing. So take it easy on yourself. We're all trying to do our best on an individual level to raise our resonance up enough in an authentic way, in a way that holds, that's like it's real. You know what I'm saying? Because we're actually being real about the way we go about it. And that's really, to me, the whole point of the Know Thyself journey. When you're coming at it real, you're going to get real results. And over time, that wave of consciousness affects, you know, society, or, you know, various societies. You know what I'm saying? It can start at a communal level, it can start in, you know, around you, because those energy waves do travel. And so it won't matter if there's false technology trying to interfere with that. You know, because everybody here, you know, had to come through feminine energy to get here. So simply going back to that can help to begin to heal on a deep enough of a level that you don't really have to become so polarized and imbalanced away from feminine energy, because we all have feminine energy within us, that we lose sight of our divine connections. You know? And so we'll take it from there. I'm going to read some affirmations that I hope will be helpful to y'all. They're helpful to me on this end, even working with spirit and writing these down was helpful. Great ways to just focus your mind, because feelings will follow. All right. You can feel free, by the way, to repeat after me or not. You can just listen and go into the zone for a few. We're going to begin. All right, we're going to begin now. I accept myself. I love myself. I forgive myself for errors made in ignorance. I gratefully accept the abundance the universe would like to extend to me. I am very thankful to my ancestors and star sisters who have made divine lessons and blessings in life possible to experience. I honor my sacred stillness and listen to divine guidance. I peacefully release all toxic projections. I am grateful for sacred stillness. I release burdens that do not belong to me. I accept the lessons and blessings in my life. I am open to miracles in my life. I know that anything loving and heart aligned is possible. I know when I need to balance my service to self and service to others. All right, y'all. So some quick affirmations. You can feel free to play that back. Eventually I'm going to release them in some way, shape, or form as, recording style. I've done that in the past. But they're upgraded now. So I guess we could put the music back on, though I'll probably turn it down just a little bit. So one of my favorites out of those is I release all toxic projections, because that includes any toxic projections that might have come from, me. So if I'm saying that, it's we could become very aware after a while of the toxic projections coming our way. But if we can look at our own projecting process and make sure that we're not projecting toxically. It's super helpful in cleaning up what we do, which empaths tend to like be hyperfixated on, so y'all may not even need to hear that. But when you release all toxic projections, you can go back into that sacred stillness, and you could be, the way I see it, in a state of receptivity. And my eyes keep, number 17 keeps coming up. My eyes keep like going towards that. Interesting. Okay. We are going to shuffle some cards from one of the Metatripping decks that has not released yet. I think we're up to like 1, 2, 3, 4 that haven't been released. That are actually like already, in card form and being utilized over here. So I haven't announced all the names yet, just because, I don't know, I feel like it's like wise to just let that be released when the promos release. But this deck deals with comedic channeling and comedic states of consciousness. Trying to decide if I should do one more. Spirit is saying to, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Okay. All right, so here we are. At the top of the deck, God bestows knowledge. I feel like when you can really stop and be still, and you can assess all of the cues and synchronicities and messages that are, kind of coming your way, you can see what you're being told, how you're being divinely guided. It's not always going to come out in words. Sometimes it's just going to be synchronicity. Sometimes it'll be riddles, because your mind is in a certain place, and riddles help the mind to kind of fixate, get more in touch, I feel anyways, with the spirit, where the spirit, you'll eventually get the answer, because the riddle itself, like the mind will be like, what? You're trying to figure it out. And when they're like Zen cone style, you eventually have to come to the spirit to get what's actually being said. You know what I'm saying? Like you might have some metaphysical knowledge, or I know what that means, or I know what that symbolizes. But when you're dealing with like a solid riddle that is kind of like, maybe it's some sort of portal keeper, before you can move on to another level of consciousness, you're going to be able to have to handle this level of math, so to speak. And so here are the riddles that are presented to you. And as you get through them, it's almost like it heals certain aspects of the mind, or the way that the mind approaches things. Because perhaps the zone you're going into doesn't really deal with mind on that same level. Perhaps it needs you to be in more of a yin state, and you need to be more aware of why you'd actually want to enter that zone of consciousness to begin with, and to check your motivations. And can you be as a child? Can you be as a student? Or are you going to come in trying to dominate or acquire or take with you, rather than come to learn like with humility and an open heart? You know what I'm saying? And I think these things are very important when we deal with higher dimensional aspects and higher dimensional beings, because they know that life. Come on now. I mean, even for the ones that are incarnated on a certain level, like, here at Earth frequency, like, they're far from fools. Like, they know, they know what's up. You know what I'm saying? And if you're coming with your ego, you might not be ready for certain things that the next person who's dealing with a little more humility can deal with. You know what I'm saying? And it's not a value judgment. It's just a positioning judgment. It's just where you might be at that moment. But as you do more self-work, then all of a sudden one day, like, this new portal of consciousness opens up to you, and you're like, oh snap, I didn't realize. I thought, like, it just didn't work for me, or I just wasn't getting it, but I get it now. You got it now because you got past whatever was in you, that whatever defenses you had lined up that would have prevented you from getting the real jewels of the experience, the real truths, and perhaps even gifts, that your ancestors, your star sisters would like to bestow to you. But once you're in a certain enough of a mind state that you can be receptive and be in the right positioning to work with those gems, you know what I'm saying, the right way. So the next card that comes up is be fluid. Well, this is actually the first card. Be fluid and unwavering. So what I'm picking up for be fluid and unwavering, let life happen. I feel like unwavering is just be yourself. You don't have to go through a bunch of fluctuations trying to figure out like how to change yourself to accommodate or fit different situations in life. And I know that, looking for jobs and different things like that, it just seems like it comes with the territory. Like, well, if you're going to go to the job interview, then you better, bring your A game or bring your whatever. But it's how disconnected have we become as a society when it's like, you know what I'm saying? Put on your basically like your Sunday best or whatever to get in the door of anything. People have approached relationships like that and then unmask themselves later. How about we just be ourselves from the door? And if whatever you're or attempting to connect with or is attempting to connect with you, if it's not in resonance, you'll figure that out really, really early. And one or both of y'all will be out and save each other a lot of time. And maybe even impart a little lesson along the way. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the be fluid aspect of this is that I feel like there's so many blessings and wisdoms. You know what I'm saying? But like beautiful wisdoms that it feels like the ancestors want to impart to us, but we have to be ready. We have to be receptive to it. And we've been taught by a very youth-centric society, and it's been that way for a while now. Like, I'm not going to put a time frame on it, but it's been youth-centric, like, probably more obviously since the 80s, but definitely before that, where there's just been this obsession, you know what I'm saying, with, like, being young and staying young. And it's like, yo, you're, like, as young as your heart is, the way I see it, like, for real. Like, eat right. You know what I'm saying? Like, eat right. Eat right, be peaceful, release toxicity, and you will feel like you'll feel more of a continuity of self. Aging takes on a different type of dimension. You know what I'm saying? Like, or it has a different kind of meaning. If you're living according to your heart, then life is a little different. And you're not really allowing the burdens to drain and draw so much of your energy that your body, kind of loses its luster or whatever at any given time. That's just how I see it. You know what I'm saying? It works for me. But, and it works for I've seen it with other people too. So I'm just not saying only that it works for me, but it really has a lot to do with like, do you hold and carry resentments and bitterness? And this is not to talk on those that came before us, our forebears who had to deal with unimaginable hardships and societal pressures where there's just a lot that wasn't talked about. I mean, there was a time where like you couldn't even go and get birth control without your husband's permission. Like I think it was in the 50s. Like I heard about that. I think it was like last year. Someone was telling me that, and I was like, "Say word." You know what I mean? Like what? My whole reaction was like, "You're playing." But we're used to a different dynamic. There are those who just sat in stress more than probably I would have to say than we have, even those of us who have dealt with long-running traumas. You know what I'm saying? So be fluid. Trust that you can receive good and good can come because you're the author of your own reality. And good is coming. And this is on a mental level. This spreads like mind, body, soul spread. So it's like mentally, if you can just go into that state of mind, well, what kind of state of mind do I go into for meditation today? Who are you? Go into that state, just as you know yourself now. You don't have to make it especially deep. Just be as you are. claim your space. Two opposing forces can't occupy the same space at the same time. So be in your space, present as you are, and you might be surprised at what you learn about yourself, that because you had yourself tucked in like shadow or hidden somewhere while you were trying to be palatable and pleasing, because that's what good people do, right? Well, let's see how you really feel when you step in that space. And I'm not saying it has to be highly emotionally charged with anger, because that can obscure your vision as well. But when you could just be as you are and then be fluid from that place and just see how it feels. Get used to it. See what the universe gives you. You know, take notes if you feel like there's some things that could be changed. But I would say, like, you have enough wisdom in self that aspect of you could help you to very quickly see what you're doing right now that has been sabotaging your life in some way. And so you can learn how to be more comfortable with being self-present, and also comfortable with being fluid enough that you can be open to others, and you can practice like that balancing act. I'm stumbling over my words a lot in this recording, but I don't know, I'm more of a state of vulnerability today. So love is true value. This is the card that's coming up in the mind. I'm sorry, not mind, the manifest area, body, physical possessions. Love is true value. Like, for all of the money chase, for all the workaholism, for all of the distractions, you know what I'm saying? Video games, whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, how much time do you take to really appreciate like the true love connections in your life? And I know that can be difficult when they're like generational patterns to get past and that sort of thing. But if you're having a heart to heart, like if you're going in your heart space and you're choosing to connect with that person on a heart level, they're either going to be here for it energetically and they're going to open their hearts too, or they're going to bounce if they're not ready for that. And that's peace. You know, everyone has the right to free will. But if you can get to that place where you're not afraid to be heart to heart, you might find that more of your experiences are pleasantly just abundant, you know, with healing energy, and even some of the money opportunities for people who are on a paper chase. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might even find yourself like, wow, like all this time I didn't realize if I just sat down and had a conversation with my aunt who I neglect, you know what I mean? Like, she's fun. Like, this was awesome. And, you know, she hooked me up with like a job opportunity or a gig. You know what I mean? Like, we require each other. That's why we weren't made as just like one person sitting on a planet by ourselves, I would think. You know what I mean? Like, we require each other. And I do think that this is a time where it's really important for us to stop and realize that instead of fighting each other and fighting against each other, we can see how well and in what ways and to what degree we can work with one another within, you know what I'm saying, a love frequency. I think it's going to heal a lot of things. It's going to humble some people. I think people who are really like riled up and wound up in their egos, they might act up because they might be very uncomfortable around that kind of energy, because a lot of their investment in how they deal with people requires manipulation, and it's hard to manipulate people who are in a love vibration. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you'd have to like, I think for types that like are straight up manipulators, like it's a way of life for them, they're looking for angles that are related to traumas they can kind of jump on. You know what I'm saying? So if they can't find that, you know, a lot of empaths have been like, you know, had wounds and shit and stuff like that. So you have like people with narcissistic tendencies, like they know how to look for that. You know what I'm saying? But if you're in a love frequency, now you're going to get to see, you know, who accepts you as you are. You know what I'm saying? And who shies away because it gets on their nerves, or, you know, like I know there's been plenty of times I've been happy and it's like, it's weird to me, but like some people would find it annoying. And I was like really just happy, heart happy, authentically happy, but it would make me feel bad, or they would criticize me. And I'm like, and there's a lot of things I don't quite get, you know, and I guess some people thought I was naive, but I'm like, I do think it's possible for us to be getting along if we could just take self accountability for our own BS. And then you don't have to sit there like pointing a finger at everyone, like unless the pointing the finger applies. So love is true value. I think like, I don't know, I do think it's going to make some people highly uncomfortable because they're not comfortable in and of themselves to present themselves in a love frequency. But you kind of just have to let people walk their own paths. So I'm not saying it's going to mean everyone is going to just be open-armed and embracing, but when you're decidedly in a love frequency, not the disempowerment, shoulders slumped, expecting to be abused frequency of the disempowered empath life. I know that life. But a love frequency. And that's where you keep it and you practice it every day. You're going to see who shows up that's like, oh, word, another person in the love frequency, and because that's where they want to be. And the ones that want to try to cast a shadow or just avoid you because they're not feeling your happy energy, that's peace. Let them do that. It's not for them at that time. You know what I'm saying? And I do feel like those who are in a love frequency are going to find a lot of opportunities coming their way. Unexpectedly and big. It feels like very generous opportunities. So there's also that, since this showed up in the manifest placement, material placement, financial placement, and so on. In the soul placement, an Archangel Michael card comes up, and this is about, you know, being a soft-spoken boss. So like your energy speaks for itself. Your energy communicates before you open your mouth. And you don't have to pump yourself up for that. You know what I'm saying? You just start with being self-accepting, and that's what's coming through Archangel Michael. Just start with being self-accepting and see how people respond to you as you do that. The other card, because I pulled two, drop the parasitic burdens. Okay, y'all? This is like a soul lesson area and something your soul is learning. I feel like something your soul has to do at this point. I feel like the parasitic burdens got like so heavy and so ridiculous. It's like, they just got to go. They just got to go. It's got to come up off me. I don't have to make excuses for people. I can just let it go. And I can peacefully release it, which is something I choose to do often. Because like, look, I ain't trying to be in a conflict with somebody who just likes conflict. All you gotta do, I feel like, is, and I am not suggesting you do, if you haven't done this yet, date one narcissistic tendency having individual. Just one. And you will learn. Ain't no need to exit a situation with conflict. You just peacefully let it go and keep it as peaceful as possible, because people who have gotten into a cycle where they like drama, they like to go around in a cycle with drama. They like to not drop situations. They like to try and create new ones. So those can be hard loops to get out of. But you can vibe up. You can be light as a feather. And that's something they can't match in terms of like the toxicity that narcissistic tendency having folks tend to like to generate. They can't match that level. So all they can do is kind of uncertainly smile back. You know what I'm saying? And then you can move, okay, all right, good seeing you, all right, peace. And you can move on with your life. You don't give them emotional access, especially not to your wounds. You just let it go. Because, shoot, I feel like most empaths can self-process. We do it all the time. We've been processing, not only self-processing everybody else's stuff, but then we have to self-process and clean up our own messes. So I hope that this has been helpful. I'm gonna keep this concise. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that this needs to be belabored, and I'm not sure that this is an opportunity for like divine counterpart readings, but I feel like we're balancing our yin and our yang in the sense that we are balancing out the self. We're balancing out how we receive others, you know, and balancing out like what motivates our actions, which is very young, very divine masculine. You know, what shapes our vision? You know what I'm saying? What do we open ourselves up to, which is what was being just talked about with drop the parasitic burdens. Like, wow, I'm really tripping over my words today. Or at least in this recording. I think because I'm getting sleepy. That's probably what it is. But what we open ourselves up to says a lot about how we view ourselves, I think. You know what I mean? And, you know, we've had situations. I know I had some situations over the past couple of years, but it's been kind of a life thing on and off of like feeling like trapped. You know what I'm saying? Like by the perceptions of others, by like negative projections and criticisms. Definitely in the family line, and definitely in like, you know, a relationship I got into with a narcissistic tendency having an individual. But the good thing about that relationship was like, yo, like the criticisms were so off base, and I'm so like, my Saturnian stuff is on point. I'm so like, that's like literally not true. Like if it's literally not true, it doesn't even factually add up. Like I quickly learned to stop listening. But I will say, even in learning to stop listening, there was still some wounded part of me, which was the blessing out of a really horrible situation. I noticed that I still was somehow affected at that part of me was still somehow affected and susceptible. And that's the part that I had to rescue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've had tons of help from spirit, tons of help from my divine counterpart. Like, it just does not even, like, there are no words for how much help I've had from my divine counterpart and from the spirit world in general. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who had to rescue my inner child. You know what I'm saying? Or rescue that vulnerable inner aspect of me with tons of encouragement. But that's what it comes down to. You know what I'm saying? Like, save yourself. You know what I mean? And then you quickly realize that, you know, it's for others to save themselves too, although you can be very, very kind. And I'm a very much a mother type, so I will quickly make you something to eat, get you a hot beverage, and we can talk about it, and I could do readings for you. It's like I have that way about me, and I don't know that that's going to change or needs to change, because it's just, I know what it's like. So, you know, when it's acute like that and somebody really needs the help, I don't have a problem setting aside the time. It's just making sure that it stays balanced so that it doesn't become too much on my time. You know what I'm saying? That I'm not like, you know, either becoming like overly accommodating, you know what I'm saying? Or that I like don't have time to think because like the person like, you know, needs help again type situation. Those can be very real situations sometimes, where it turns out that way. But if you're an empath listening and you're feeling like, I can't do this anymore, I can't be the one that everybody in the family comes to, but when I need, where are they? I can't, you know, whatever your story is, like, take some self-time for you. Truly. It's okay. And it may feel like a reflexive action, like somebody needs some help, like I'm sitting here too long being idle. Try to like go and take like a really calming like spa bath, like put some crystals up in there, and, you know what I'm saying? Some, you know, throw some sage up in there, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, whatever, make it a spa experience. And give to your inner child. You know, commune with your ancestors. Like, start to train yourself to maybe take just a little more time to yourself. And then that person that you might have been helpful to, who might not have really needed the help like that much, can now utilize that time that they didn't get to access you to take some time with themselves. And then it goes around. And people become more empowered across the board, and you get more sleep and rest so that you can be vibrant out here. You know what I'm saying? More vibrant and happy living your life. Hope this was helpful, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to shine a light beam in the comments. And then on the top of the deck, because I was just shuffling for like the next session or whatever, but make way for upgrades to your energy system came in. So, ooh, I'm not even going to read the card. I'm just going to leave y'all with that because I'm not sure if that's like talking about right now. But that's what's at the top of the deck for the next reading, whenever the next reading happens. All right, y'all. Peace and blessings on your ascension journey.